throughout the summer concert season, in those days we did 12 concerts. And today it is a kind of picnic in the park. In those days, there were about 2,000 chairs that had to be put out every Wednesday morning for the concert and then taken back in on a Thursday morning. This happened for 12 weeks. And, you know, it became a bit monotonous, I must admit. It was a friend of mine who had been here quite a few years previous to that, and he kind of gave me a little tip. And I used it, and it actually worked. Each block, obviously, would be block A, B, C, and D. So there would be a pole with block A and a number on it. And he said, if you walk around with one of those, he said, nobody will ask you any questions. And one week I did that. I just wandered around with this pole with the letter A on it, and everybody assumed I was either was taking it away or putting it back. And I was just walking around the camp. When I was here, Trevor Sharp was the professor of harmony, and obviously he absolute legend in military music, and actually revered outside of the military as well. And I remember he formed a brass band. He had been commissioned by Sultan of somewhere the piece was called The Steps of Muscat. And we had to go to a recording studio in London to record this piece of music, which Trevor Sharp had either rescored or had written. And that's the only time I ever got to work with him, but that was a great honour, because for many years I'd seen his name appear at the end of Dad's Army on the credits, you know, Captain Trevor Sharp. But then actually to meet the man and work with him was fantastic. And there was a lovely link there, in that my corner teacher back in Wales was in his band when he was bandmaster of the Buffs. His first band he had, my corner teacher was in the band with him as an instrumentalist. So there was a nice link there. Yeah, I can, yeah. It was change. Official duty, it was about a week after changing of the guard at Buckingham Palace. Didn't have much idea what was going on. It overwhelms you. You know, you in a band, there's thousands of people. There's so much to think about, and there's so much experience around you, you know, and you think, can't let these people down, can't let these people down, you know. And that was my first exposure to a duty, but I remember going into my first rehearsal with the band and going, wow, it was another level from here, because, you know, there was a lot of years of experience in that room who had been doing. People had been in the band 20, 25 years. Huge experience, you know, so they knew the job inside out, and it was just overwhelming to see the noise they made, the knowledge that was in that room was absolutely fantastic. I remember going to, again, America, Washington State, in the late I think it was about 1998. And the Welsh Guards Battalion, they were on an exercise called Trumpet Dance out in Washington State. And it was one of the rare engagements where the band went with them. Generally, the band and the regiment, we were separate entities. The band always remained in London to support state ceremonial musically. But we went with the regiment to Washington State. And what we did while they were doing their exercises, we would go into schools and do schools concerts. And bearing in mind, this is the late 90s, to go into schools in another country and say no guns allowed, that was, wow, you know, that was quite shocking. And I think, really? And the teacher said, yes, that's what happens. But I remember one day we went into a school, and it was clearly, without being disrespectful, it was a school where the children had needs. But I could distinctly remember the moment we started playing music, the smiles on their faces. It's fantastic, you know. All of a sudden, you know, these people who clearly, children who had clearly had terrible issues at so young ages, all of a sudden, you expose them to live music, and And even the teachers are going, why can't we get more of this? You could tell, you could physically see kind of children kind of being more open. I distinctly remember that, thinking, yeah, that's the power of music. Queen Mum's funeral, they kind of are, they're set out already. There is a plan for state funerals. So I think at that time I was with the Welsh Guards, so our role, my role, the band's role in that was that we were on horse guards on our own, and we were there and played as the cortege went past. With Margaret Thatcher's funeral, at that time I was with the Scots Guards band, and a similar sort of thing. We played music, I wouldn't say to entertain the crowds, but we played solemn music before the cortege came past, and then we stopped, and then obviously that was at St. Paul's Cathedral. So there are similarities. You know, the music reflects the mood of the nation at that time, and you know, music is picked accordingly for those events.
Is there a difference? Do you feel different playing those, you know, an event like that versus an event where you're, you know, celebratory thing? I mean, how does it affect you as a musician?
I would say that with a celebratory effect, you are adding to the event. I think when you're providing music for a somber thing, I think it's more of a different kind of reflective approach you have. You know, when you're performing, you know, you're being extrovert. It is about you performing. Obviously, with a state funeral or a memorial service of any kind, it's not about the music or the individual. It's about the bigger thing. And I think your mental approach is very, very different to how as an instrumentalist, how I would approach that. You know, I would be far more introvert and very kind of not subservient, but I would not be so kind of forthright in the way I approach the music. I'd be far more softer in my approach to playing the music.
Okay, good.
For me, the last post is one of the most difficult things to do. I don't think there's many pieces of music where everybody feels exactly the same thing. You know, music means something different to everybody. It's not so much the music, it's the emotion that is attached to it, how it affects people. But if you think of the last post, people are remembering somebody or something. And generally, it's somebody who has either given their life for their country, and I think as a performer or somebody who has to deliver the last post, you have to make sure it is absolutely perfect. I don't think there's in any way that you can afford to get it slightly wrong. And I stand by that. For the last 30 years, I've always had that kind of outlook. It's something that you can't get wrong. You cannot. You have to prepare meticulously. In November last year, I played at the England-Germany game the night before Remembrance Weekend, which was that was quite something. Would I like to do it again? I'm not too sure. You know, to have a full Wembley Stadium, and I don't know many million people watching it on television, and then all of a sudden you're aware that there's a camera down at your right-hand side, of thinking, "Oh, this is live on TV now, isn't it?" But you have to prepare, and you know. And the following day, I was down at Twickenham playing for the last post again for the England, ironically, Argentina game. You know, and again, same situation, but you just have to deliver it. You know. Obviously, the Trump visit was largely quite a guarded secret. Until close to the time. We knew around a month out that he was visiting, and the sites that were going to be used for the dinner and when he was going to visit the Queen. So the bands in the Foot Guards bands, or the bands, the state bands in London were assigned the tasks. The Irish Guards, the Welsh Guards and the Scots Guards, it was decided that we would be present at the dinner at Blenheim Palace, and the Grenadier Guards and Coldstream Guards would form the Guard of Honour at Windsor. But what became clear is that they wanted, as we spoke about earlier on, about this unique bond between Great Britain and the United States of America. So, you know, you were given roughly the timings. We had 2 10-minute spots. There was 10 minutes pre-arrival music, when obviously all the guests were stood on the steps at Blenheim Palace, and we did a short marched on and played some quintessentially British music, and then we the bands then stepped off. We broke ranks to leave the clear path for Mr. Trump and the First Lady to arrive onto the steps, where then we would do our marching display. So it was so the first thing was, okay, let's go to Blenheim Palace and work out what we've got, the timings and all that kind of stuff. And that's how it kind of evolved, really. Music was sent for acceptance. That was decided. And then we kind of put it all together and delivered it on the evening. But the music was very important, because this unique bond. So we chose music where there was I guess, subliminal messages, using a British tune of Dear Lord and Father of Mankind, which was written by Parry, which was taken from his oratorio Judith, but put in taps, the American version of Last Post over the top of that, and then going into Amazing Grace, although the words were written by Charles Wesley, fundamentally is an American tune, and putting Our Last Post over the top of it. So again, trying to refer to this unique bond, which I think we did quite successfully, using the Liberty Fanfare by John Williams. Again, talks about celebration. And then when they were leaving to go into dinner, we decided that we would use Valiant Years, which obviously, I do remember it, I can't say I didn't, was the theme tune to the dramatisation of Churchill's life, or the link with Churchill and Blenheim Palace, and written by an American, and obviously President Trump's love of Winston Churchill. So it all kind of worked, and it was noted, you know, how the music reflected what was going on at the time, which we're grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite sad. I think it's very sad. I think you know, they're still trying to find another venue. I think they should try do everything they can to try and, why not keep this place and just maybe repair it. It's here, you know, it's got 150, 160 years of history. Why would you want to lose that? Because once it's gone, you're never going to get it back. You know, and it is revered all over the world. You know, training establishments, musical training establishments across the world. I've heard of Nell Hall. You know, and this museum itself, it's an absolute gold mine of instrumental history, which, you know, it's only now it's being realised what we've got, because unfortunately the threat of closure is upon us. On the day of the wedding, we provided music to entertain the crowds. I think it was around 11 o'clock. 10, 11 o'clock for an hour. We then went back to Victoria Barracks in Windsor, had lunch, and then we came, once the wedding had started, we then came back out and put the streetliners in place, and then we played music as we played the national anthem as Her Majesty the Queen and the wedding party left, and then we entertained the crowds as the royal procession left and did their tour of Windsor. But it was, you know, you're right there in that moment, which again, something that people can't take away from you. You know, I think that is only my second royal wedding. Played at William and Catherine's, but in a far lesser role. But to be the band outside St George's Chapel, Windsor, entertaining the crowds, it was a fantastic experience.
What was your feeling as you saw Harry and Meghan come past, and do you remember how you felt about that? Did they look wonderful?
Yeah, but I was more concerned that the national anthem was being played at that time, if I have to be honest, because the national anthem had to be played at a certain point. So I was more concerned. This is great, but we need to deliver what we've been asked to deliver. It's kind of not letting the euphoria of the moment get carried away, and just being focused on what you're actually there to do.
Was it very hot that day?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it stood us in good stead for the summer, really, this summer. But it was quite warm. Yeah. For me, the last post is one of the most difficult things to do. I don't think there's many pieces of music where everybody feels exactly the same thing. Music means something different to everybody. It's not so much the music, it's the emotion that is attached to it, how it affects people. But if you think of the last post, people are remembering somebody or something, and